The billionaire was notorious for his extravagant lifestyle, a man whose wealth seemed limitless, yet he was fascinated by human behavior, especially when it came to money. One morning, he decided to conduct an unusual experiment to see how people would act when given complete freedom with his fortune. He called his personal assistant and instructed him to bring 4 of the blackest, most exclusive credit cards he owned. These were not ordinary cards. Each was a symbol of wealth beyond imagination, granting access to unimaginable luxury without question or limit. He intended to test 4 women, each known to him in different capacities: a close family friend, a renowned social media influencer, a hardworking maid, and a business associate who had always been ambitious and calculating. The 4 women arrived one after another, curious yet hesitant, as the billionaire explained the experiment. "Each of you will receive one of these cards," he said, his voice calm but commanding. "You may use it however you wish. There are no limits, no rules. I want to see what choices you make when money is no object. Tomorrow, I will review your purchases, and you will see the results of your decisions. Be honest with yourselves. Be daring if you want. But remember, I am watching." The family friend was first. She took the card delicately, almost reverently, her eyes shining with anticipation. She immediately began imagining all the luxuries she could acquire, envisioning exotic vacations, designer dresses, and lavish jewelry. By the next day, her purchases reflected every indulgence she had dreamed of. Private jets, exclusive brand collections, fine dining reservations in the most prestigious restaurants, and even rare antiques that were practically priceless. She had spent with flair and extravagance, each purchase screaming opulence. The billionaire examined her receipts, nodding thoughtfully. She had chosen luxury, yes, but there was little creativity, no personal touch, only the predictable pursuit of wealth. Next came the social media influencer. Unlike the first woman, her approach was to showcase the experience rather than just acquire material goods. She booked extraordinary trips, not for herself alone but for a group of followers, planning every moment to be shared online. She commissioned elaborate photo shoots, rare animals in private sanctuaries, and experiences that seemed straight out of a dream. The influencer's goal was engagement, popularity, and visibility, not necessarily personal satisfaction or generosity. The billionaire watched her purchases carefully, recognizing that she had maximized the power of influence but remained consumed by vanity. She had used the card, yet it had been a tool for projection rather than meaningful action. The third woman, the ambitious business associate, approached the task differently. She saw the card as an opportunity to invest, strategize, and leverage the billionaire's resources to generate more wealth. She bought rare commodities, invested in startups, and even secured rights to exclusive events that could later yield profit. Her mind was sharp, her calculations precise, and her purchases reflected intelligence and foresight. The billionaire was impressed with her acumen. She had understood that the value of money could be multiplied, not just spent. Yet there was a certain coldness to her choices, a focus on strategy over emotion, which made her purchases feel detached from the human side of life. Finally, it was the maid's turn. She had always been quiet, observant, and humble, yet everyone underestimated her insight and taste. She took the card with a soft smile, a glimmer of curiosity in her eyes, but she did not rush. Unlike the others, she did not think of extravagance or profit. Instead, she walked calmly through the city, contemplating how she could make the most meaningful choices. Over the next 24 hours, her spending unfolded like a gentle revelation. She purchased basic necessities for families in need, invested in schools and small businesses for struggling entrepreneurs, and helped renovate community centers and hospitals. She bought food for the homeless, medicines for those who could not afford treatment, and even arranged small surprises for children in orphanages. Her purchases were not flashy, but each had a story, a purpose, and an impact. When the billionaire reviewed her receipts, his initial amusement turned to astonishment. Unlike the others, she had not sought self-indulgence or recognition. She had chosen kindness, empathy, and generosity, using wealth not as a tool for vanity, influence, or gain, but to touch lives. Every item on her list reflected thoughtfulness and humanity. He leaned back in his chair, momentarily speechless, realizing that the lesson he had sought from this experiment was delivered in a way he had not anticipated. True power, he understood, was not in spending recklessly, gaining influence, or making shrewd investments, but in using resources to improve the lives of others. The billionaire called the women back, one by one, to discuss their choices. The first woman spoke confidently about her luxury purchases, expecting admiration, but he simply nodded, offering polite acknowledgement without enthusiasm. The influencer eagerly displayed her experiences online, anticipating praise, yet he remained composed, his expression unreadable. The business associate confidently explained her investments and future profits, and while he commended her intellect, there was a certain emptiness in his reaction, as though her approach had lacked a deeper connection to life. Finally, the maid presented her modest yet profoundly impactful list of purchases. As she described each action, the billionaire's admiration became evident. He asked her why she had spent in such a manner, and she smiled simply. "I have seen what people need every day. Wealth is not just numbers in a bank, it is the power to make a difference. I wanted to see the world a little brighter for those who cannot buy what they need." The room was quiet, each woman reflecting on the choices she had made. The billionaire, who was rarely at a loss for words, was visibly moved. For the first time in years, he realized that money could be a true instrument of change when guided by empathy rather than ego. He stood and approached the maid, handing her a new, specially designed card of his own creation. "This," he said, his voice soft yet resonant, "is yours to use however you wish, without limitation. Not as a test, but as trust, and with the hope that you continue to make the world better with it." Tears welled in her eyes, and the billionaire felt a deep sense of satisfaction. The experiment, intended to reveal human behavior, had instead revealed something far more valuable: the power of kindness and moral integrity. He realized that the maid's choices, humble yet transformative, reflected a wealth that surpassed anything money could buy. Each woman left the room with lessons learned, but the billionaire himself carried a new perspective on life, one that would forever change how he viewed wealth and responsibility. News of the experiment soon spread, and people were fascinated by the story. Articles praised the maid's generosity and highlighted the contrast between indulgence, vanity, ambition, and compassion. The billionaire, who had expected entertainment and curiosity, discovered humility and wisdom instead. He continued to live lavishly, but now with a deeper understanding of the true meaning of wealth. And the maid, who had once been overlooked, became a quiet legend, a reminder that true value is measured not by what one spends, but by the positive impact one leaves behind. Months later, the billionaire would often reflect on that day, remembering the four women and the lessons they unwittingly provided. Luxury could dazzle, influence could manipulate, ambition could strategize, but only empathy could transform. The experiment had begun as a test of behavior, yet it ended as a revelation: the richest hearts are not always the ones with the deepest pockets. And in the quiet generosity of the maid, the billionaire found inspiration, guidance, and, ultimately, a truth that money alone could never teach.